Welcome to Worldview Matters, discussing controversial issues, discerning current events, defending biblical Christianity. No topic off limits. And now, here's your host, David Fiorazzo.
Friends, family in Christ, thank you so much for tuning in, for watching, for listening on whatever platform you are. You're going to be in for a treat today. We're going to get a behind-the-scenes report on Israel, a friend and brother in Christ who recently took a trip there and spent some time with the IDF. We're going to bring in Dr. David Bowen. First time on the podcast. It's a blessing to catch up with this brother. He's a pastor of Standing Stones Community Church in Phoenix, Arizona, and he teaches at Grand Canyon University. Well, he just returned from Israel. He worked with the IDF for 10 days when he was there, and I'm sure he saw some eye-opening things, and he's here to report about his experience, and we'll learn a lot more today. Brother, welcome to Worldview Matters. So good to see you.
David, thanks for having me. I've been a fan of yours and the show for a while, so it's a joy to be on your show, brother.
Oh, my goodness. You're too kind. So let me give the websites real quick. The first one, Standing Stones cc.org. That's Standing Stones Community Church. So standingstonescc.org. And then his other website is interpretingthetimes.com. Interpretingthetimes.com. And I see videos there. I see all kinds of things. I know I connected with you on Facebook as well. Is there anything else as far as how people can find out more about you, get a hold of you, that you want to mention on their website? I know your Facebook. Anything else, David?
Yeah, the best way is interpretingthetimes.com, as you mentioned there. And if you're in the Phoenix area, Standing Stones Community Church, we're Northeast Phoenix. Love to have you with us. But basically online, interpretingthetimes.com would be where you can find everything you need to know about us.
Awesome. So, brother, I almost don't know where to start, but when you were showing some videos about, behind the scenes there, you were in a helicopter with the IDF. First I'm going, man, that would be a great experience. But was there any sense of danger? Obviously, you're with guys that you knew what they were doing, but as an observer there, just tell us a little bit about the overall sense of your experience there, and then we'll get into some of the specifics of where you went.
Yeah, it wasn't a helicopter. It was a Humvee. We were on the ground with that, so we didn't get in the air. But it's just being with these guys, I was amazed at them. What I don't understand is, they have a military of about 20,000. The IDF, the soldiers, is about 20,000 that they're strong. But the reserves, they just called up almost 300,000 reserves in the last 2 years since the war started over there. So the reserves don't get the equipment that the IDF gets. They're pretty much on their own to get things. So one of the things I went over that, I wanted to see firsthand what it was like to literally walk in their footsteps and to be with them, to find out what their needs are, because I wanted to come alongside and help them with whatever needs they are. And David, I found out, they have vests, but they don't have the steel in their vests. They're not protected. They don't have boots. They don't have the right kind of boots. They don't have basic equipment. The reserves are basically on their own to get their own stuff. They might be given a gun, and a couple of them showed me their guns. They're from the 1970s. So it's just really heartbreaking to see what they have and what they need. I mean, they're in the middle of war, defending a country, defending righteousness, and I'm not even calling it a war. It's not a war. They're fighting terrorism. Yep. What's taking place over there is not war, it's terrorism.
Thank you.
And they're taking a stand for righteousness. So to be with them, it was just a joy and an honor.
Let's go back to the equipment briefly. Don't they get money from the United States? Where does that money go for fighting the war? That obviously doesn't get to their equipment and what their armor and whatever else they need. Can you explain a little bit more of that in detail?
Well, the IDF itself is not supposed to take any kind of donations. They want them to have the best equipment, and it kind of goes from the Air Force. The F-35 pilots get top notch, then special ops, and then you get the fighting men, and then you get the reserves. So 20,000, they kind of cover that. But when you get to 150, 200, 300,000 reserves being called up, there's just not enough equipment and funds to go around.
That makes sense.
And now they're calling up Gaza City is on the radar, and that's going to be happening in the next few weeks. There's something going on in Lebanon right now, and we were right there on the border in Lebanon. We were in Syria. We were in Gaza. So there's things happening now. They're just now calling up another 60,000 reserves. So, see, you have to be in the military. Guys, when you're 18, you have 3-year commitment. Girls, you have a 2-year commitment. But even when you go in, you get a uniform and you get some boots and you get a gun, and that's about it. The parents actually have to provide the rest of it.
Wow.
And many parents over there will open an Amazon account, and they will have things like socks and things that their child's going to need to serve for the next 2 or 3 years. So they get the basic equipment, and then they're on their own for the rest. But some of this stuff, I mean, again, you're talking about night goggles. You're talking about boots that are real boots. You're talking about vests that are really protected vests and helmets. Wow. That's where we're coming in and bringing some funds in and helping.
Can you talk a little bit about the young girls, young women, the 2-year commitment? I mean, over in the West, we almost find that unheard of, that women are fighting in the Israel Defense Forces, IDF.
Yes.
Wow.
It actually begins in high school. So on grade 11th, they start having their first meetings. They have to go in for different tests. They actually take a test in Hebrew. How well do you speak Hebrew? And what's interesting, David, I know we're in the end times because God is bringing people back to Israel. People from other countries who feel called home are coming home. I met groups from Ethiopia. I met Americans who went over there and they're serving in the IDF. They didn't have a job. They didn't have family. God just called them back. But they have to speak in Hebrew. So one of the tests they have is a Hebrew test. And they get graded from 1 to 10. Then they have an intelligence test. Then they have a physical test. So from grade 11 up until they graduate, they're taking all these tests. And they get to find out what their job's going to be, where they're classified, what they're qualified for. And they kind of get placed. So when they turn 18, they're ready to start serving in the military. The females, it's a 2-year commitment. The males, it's a 3-year commitment. So in high school, I was talking to an 18-year-old over there who just graduated, and she wants to be an F-35 fighter pilot. Now, there's 300 beginning that class. It's a 3-year program. They can cut you at any time.
Wow.
And about 10% of them will actually make it. About 1% will be female. So the numbers are against her, but she's determined to do it. She just had a friend of hers who was in the program for 2 years, and he was just cut. He was cut because they qualified him as not being motivated. He passed all his tests. He was doing everything, but they said he wasn't motivated enough, so he got kicked from the program. And you can get cut at any time in the 3 years.
Wow. So to follow up on what you just shared, a part of it about young women, a lot of people might be wondering, well, why why women? They don't understand. Think about the population in Israel. Think about the ongoing wars and threats and attacks from other nations for decades and decades, how long this has been going on, that there's a constant threat. They live under constant threats. And then think about who needs to be called up, who needs to be ready for what border. Are they going up to the north? They're going to Gaza? So can you explain any more of that a little bit better than I just did, David? Because people still might be wondering, wow, why do they need so many reserves?
Well, they are fighting everywhere with this. And what I really learned over there too, and I was guilty when Lebanon would fire rockets into Israel, you would hear they would hit the field. And I'd go, oh, yeah, well, one article was it hit a cow and killed a couple cows. And I kind of said, well, they missed. It's okay. They took out some farmland or something. Well, families kind of taught me a lesson over there. They're saying, you don't understand. That was somebody's orchard. When it hit that chicken coop, it wiped out 40 years of farming. It caused fires. It caused destruction. It's taking lifestyles and turning it upside down. So when the rockets come in, if it's not killing life, it's destroying their life, their livelihood. And then another thing they're doing, they're not firing at military people. They're not firing at military facilities. They're firing into civilian populations. And seeing the rockets that they fire, they're wrapping them with nails and with ball bearings so that when they hit, they explode and more, the chaparral goes out and to lame and kill and hurt people. It's designed to take away civilian lives, not military lives. They're aiming for the civilians. So you got to protect yourself constantly. We were up in the Syria border. We had just crossed over into Syria, and there was a family parked a car next to us. There was a public area not too far away, and they opened their trunk, and I went over and said, can I get a picture of your trunk? And they kind of looked at me like, yeah, but why? In it was vests, helmets, boots. It's a regular family going out for an outing. They always have to be prepared, never knowing what's going to happen. We went down to Samaria. It's not the West Bank. It's Samaria. and to the farmers. The farmers are being killed. The farmers are being slaughtered. It's amazing what's taking place over there. The IDF has just put technology in place where they're monitoring 100 farms over there now. They will say, hey, let's go kill some Jews, and they'll go to the farmland and they'll wipe out families on farms that have no protection for themselves. Up in the north, in Golden Heights, we met a militia, basically. It's 120 men strong now because the Golden Heights is expanded. It's a mountain range, and you can come over and attack, and you can't cover all that ground. There's not enough manpower. So they've got a volunteer force. It was a volunteer force of 120 militia. They are now they're not reserves now, they are now part of the IDF, but they're on their own for their own equipment.
Wow. Let's talk about that, because before we got on the podcast, you said there is a way that your church or your ministry can help with donations that come in. You can send money over for equipment. Do I have that right? And how do people donate if they want to?
Yeah, Interpret the Times is our ministry. We started that about 20 years ago. And up until a month or so ago, you could not donate to us. It was never about money. We always wanted to be a resource and a teaching ministry. Well, now with my experience with Israel, we just now put a donate button on Interpret the Times. So if anybody wants to help, they can go to Interpret the Times. There's a donate button. Just if they want to make any donation, just move it. Say it's for Bless Israel. We call it the Blessing Israel account. And any money that comes in, we will accumulate it and send it off immediately to buy things over in Israel. Just for an example, the boots cost about $500 a pair, what they need. The vest with the armor inside of it is about $2,500 a vest. Nighttime goggles, which we were using over there, they run between $9,000 and $12,000. What they really need is drones. Drones will cost between $12,000 and $15,000. I have one church right now raising money to buy one drone to send over there. So whatever the needs are, whatever people can do, I have a priority list of what the units are looking for. I connect it with 4 or 5 units over there, and I know what their needs are. And it's an ongoing situation. So we will get as much material to them as possible.
So again, friends, that's so important. Interpretingthetimes.com. I'd encourage you to donate. This is a great cause, something that really is a need. And if you want to connect with David on Facebook, it's at Interpret Times on Facebook. You can look that up, connect with them there. David, you also do a podcast, right?
I do. It's called The Final Hour, correct.
Yeah, and people can, obviously you post it on your Facebook page, but it's also at Interpreting the Times?
That's correct. Everything's on Interpreting the Times, correct. Or by Facebook. My personal Facebook page as well. Okay, so I saw some of the videos you shared because we're friends and I followed you there. You showed so many pictures and videos. One of them was of all the carnage of the cars. That was outside the Nova, or how did they do that? And then there's a memorial there. Just walk us through that part of the trip, please. When October of 2023 happened, October 7th, what Hamas did is they formed groups of 30, and they were attacking certain areas. There was 7,000 Hamas soldiers that came over. So there was 33,000 that were trained. There was 2,000 that were just fighters. Believe it or not, there was 1,000 volunteers who breached into Israel and attacked Israel. And this was not a war. Again, this was terrorism. So actually the Nova Festival was not a main site. They were just north of that, and they were moving towards Tel Aviv. That was their direction. When they saw what's happening at Nova, groups of 30 started to attack. I had an interview, which I'm going to release later on, with the intelligence officer there, and we sat down and talked. It's about an 11-minute interview, and he gave me details that are just graphic in what they did, especially to women. This was not war. This was demonic what they were doing. It's 2 years past this almost, and he was about breaking down, explaining to me what was taking place. So that they have a memorial there on the site where the stage was, where the festival was. Over in the parking lot, as they were trying to escape, they're planting trees. And again, there was thousands of people who were killed here. Out on the main highway, there's 1,300 cars, and I lost track of how many. I mean, it's over 1,300 cars that were caught on fire and burned and destroyed, and there was people in them. And they've put them now, they've stacked them, and you can go and you can see where they're at. And it's just breathtaking to know what's happening. And what the IDF told me was, in Israel, in the culture, blood is sacred. So when they were cleaning the cars, and again, it's like you're back in the 1930s, there's ashes, human body ashes in Israel. It would take them sometimes 3 weeks to clean out the ashes because they were very sacred and they took their time with it. And if their blood spilled on any part of the car, that part of the car also was taken and buried with them because the blood was sacred. And when they did this, again, the road itself was burned. You go over there, the road is refreshed because it was burned too. That's how terrible this was. And it just, the carnage, the death, women, children, animals, it didn't matter. Hamas just went crazy and destroyed all this. Again, that's terrorism. It's not war. And it's just walking through the memorial. And they have pictures there. So everybody who was killed, there's a picture of them. And you get a little story, a little bio. A lot of them were female. And on the bottom of it, the parents, the family has put a little memorial, personal items from each one. So each one's different. And to walk through and to see the smiling faces, the innocent faces. And this was a park. I mean, this was where families were there with their kids. This is where athletes were there, playing pickup games. This was a Saturday morning. This was a Shabbat morning that they were just trying to enjoy themselves when this terror attack came upon them.
We have to take a brief pause. It's hard to understand how the world has just demonically and deceptively turned against Israel, calling them the ones that are causing genocide. It really is demonic what's happening. The anti-Semitism we're seeing, it's off the charts. Maybe we'll speak to that in a moment with Dr. David Bowen. We'll be right back. So David, really quick, we didn't mention this at the beginning. You have authored a few books, but what I also find interesting is you served as a chaplain in professional baseball and you wrote a movie script for Worldwide Pictures. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, you're going back quite a ways with that, back in my seminary days.
That's
but yes,
okay.
I was a ball player. That was my dream. I didn't grow up in church. Baseball was quote, my God back then. And I was able to get to a certain level, and then injuries ended that. But God brought that back into my life years later. I spent almost 7 years as a chaplain in the Seattle Mariners organization with Baseball Chapel. The way Baseball Chapel organized it, it wasn't by league or division, it was by team. So I was assigned to the Seattle Mariners and had a wonderful time, got to be back in professional baseball as a chaplain. And then I was in the movie business after I got out of baseball. I was in the movie business making stuff in Hollywood, and I quit, walked away from that. And a few years later, Worldwide Pictures gave me a call. They were looking for a movie that Billy Graham could preach in, and it was about cowboys and kids, and that was the criteria. So I wrote a movie called The Ride. It was shot in 1997, released in 98, around that time frame. And it did quite well. So it was a blessing to be involved with that too.
The Ride. That's interesting. So I see that Jeff found the title of your books, finally, the Book of Revelation Made Easy.
Yes.
Yeah. And then
again, I didn't grow up in church. So when I read the Bible, I just took the Bible as literal. I didn't understand. I didn't know what prophecy was. I had questions. I wanted to learn. And I realized when we get to the Book of Revelation, people weren't talking about it or understanding it. And I read the first chapter, verse 3, there's two promises there. I said, well, God's not going to give us a blessing and a promise and make it hard to understand. So I dove into it. And what people need to understand, in order to understand the last book of the Bible, Revelation, you have to understand the entire Bible. So I explained the Book of Revelation through the Old Testament. I have hundreds of verses from the Old Testament explaining everything that is explained in the Book of Revelation.
So, yeah, you're blessed if you read it, right? It's just like so simple. Another one, the color-coded Gospels. Tell us briefly about that.
I was just doing a study with that, and I wanted to know, okay, how many stories are compatible in the Gospels? How many cross over, and what aspects? Does Mark tell you something that Luke doesn't tell you? And to see how John is separated from that and how unique that is. So I took all four Gospels, I laid them over top of each other, and I color-coded them, and that became the book. Awesome.
So, David, back to now what we were talking about. You were doing an interview there. We've heard and read, some of us, graphic information about what happened, how brutal and horrific those Hamas attacks were on Israel. And the media probably tried to shy away from a lot of the details for obvious reasons. But again, there's a worldview issue there, which they do not support Israel. And you don't want to make them a victim or give them sympathy. But it is horrific. Anything else you want to share before we move on about the Nova Festival, the memorials there, other people you've talked to? Go ahead.
Oh, there's hours and hours and hours of stuff with that. But we're unique. There was a power plant there that Hamas attacked. Israel took it and reestablished it and got it going again. It's going right now. It's operational right now. Israel could have kept it offline, but they would not do that because they would not affect the civilian population in Gaza. It was power for them. They wanted the hospitals and the schools and the civilians to have power and electricity. So Israel keeps the power plant going. Israel makes sure that there is food down there. There is plenty of food down in Gaza. There is not a crisis there. That they just told everybody, the doctors, they just released a report saying, move out. They told all the medical people, you have time to get out, because Gaza City is going to be wiped out, and that needs to be done. Just seeing the livelihood there and what's happening. I had an IDF soldier. I was sharing with him. He took his cell phone out and he showed me a picture. And what it was 4 terrorists on his grass. It was October 7th, that day, the day the attack happened. It was late in the day. And they weren't shot and killed, they were arrested. But they took their uniforms off. What they realized was that Hamas was in a group of 30, and they didn't know each other. So what they did, they took some of the uniforms off, the ones that they were arresting, they put the uniforms on IDF, and IDF was able to go in and take down more terrorists because they didn't know each other. They didn't know who they were. But the fact that they did not shoot and kill these terrorists, they put them on the ground and they arrested them. And I have a photo that shows that. It's just, that's the kind of news that's not, the mainline news just ignores and the world does not know.
Wow. And another thing that I don't know if everybody understands, when they are about to make some sort of action, they sometimes fly over and pass out leaflets or drop leaflets warning the people to get out. Who does that in war? Go ahead.
Yeah, they have something called knocking on the roof. It's a grenade-sized thing, and it was a bomb that doesn't explode. So if you're in your building and this grenade comes through, it's a warning saying, hey, you have a few minutes to get out of the building because what's in here needs to be destroyed. And then they will drop leaflets as well saying, we will Gaza City's coming up. You're going to see that. They're going to tell the people. They're telling people now. They're telling doctors and medics. What's the news doing? There's about 1 million people in Gaza City. That's the population. So the news is now broadcasting that if they do this, it's going to put at risk 1 million people who are in hospital beds right now. The entire city is not in a hospital bed, but they're telling the doctors and medical staff and any kind of humanitarian aid to get out and go south. They're making sure they have a way out, but they need to go in there and take care of the tunnels and take care of Gaza. There is over 100 tunnels in between Gaza and Egypt. You don't hear about Egypt and what they're doing. No. And I was there with the IDF. 20 of those 100 tunnels, the 20 was so big, you can drive trucks through them. Wow. So we're not talking about small little things. These are things where they can move ammunition, they can move weapons, and the IDF needs to go over there and destroy those.
Wow. Really fascinating. So what else is going on as far as the humanitarian aid? We hear the lies. We see the news reporting that Israel is starving people, which is a lie. I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, Candace Owens was one who also put that out. She's a big influencer on social media. But the trucks are literally being hijacked by Hamas. Is that not correct?
There is plenty of food down there. In fact, it was interesting. A Germany paper just came out, and there was a picture of women and children hanging over a fence with empty pots and pans. And the headline was, Israel is starving these people in Gaza. Germany came out and said that was a fake picture and that was posed. So the truth is starting to come out, but there is plenty of food there. If the civilian people want to stay, they have the right to stay. They can stay. But Israel's saying we are going to take this and we are going to eliminate the terrorists and we are going to protect our people. There's 20 hostages that are still alive there. We don't know what kind of condition they're in. We don't know what it's going to be like. But it's time to end this. And Israel is getting ready to do that.
So, David, I know this is an obvious maybe answer or question to you and I, but Israel is a secular nation. Why are we in America, or why are Christians interested in supporting or helping Israel?
Well, the reason I love Israel is because God does. I love the Lord, and I know that throughout Scripture, I have a handout I give out. It's 170 verses from the Bible that says the land belongs to Israel. God created everything. He's the creator of it all. He owns it all. He does what he wants to do with it, and he gave the land to Israel. We know that God's not done with Israel. Going back to Abraham, there was promises made. Those promises will be kept. Now, there's 2 regatherings in Scripture. One from Babylon when they were disciplined and sent to Babylon. The second regathering is in the end times, and we're seeing that now. In fact, David, we're in the first generation since AD 70 that there's more Jews living in Israel than outside of Israel. So God is regathering his people. However, he's regathering them in the same condition they left, which is a condition of unbelief. And that won't change until the tribulation period. We're just setting everything up for that time frame. Romans 11 is true. Romans 11 will come true, and all the promises that we have. So why should Christians care about that? Well, we need to be praying for them. Zechariah, the prophet Zechariah said that in the end times, 2/3 of the Jews won't survive. Mm-hmm. Being over in Israel, being a Christian, being excited about the rapture, being excited about end times, they get offended by that because they're saying, don't you realize what you're getting excited about is 2/3 of my people won't survive? Because Zechariah is the Old Testament. They're aware of that.
Yeah.
But I have a dear friend, Olivier Melvick, who says, his wife explained to him, I said, Olivier, it's not a number, it's a percentage. All we need to do is reach more Jews and lower that percentage. And that's what his ministry is all about.
Yep, Shalom and Messiah. We've had him on many times. I love that brother.
Yes.
In fact, he was just there too.
He was with me.
Oh, okay. So I haven't caught up with him yet, and I'll get his report too. So, David, this is going to have to be continued. I would love to have you back. There's so much more that you could share from your experience being there, because we're not getting the truth from the liberal, progressive, Marxist media in America, from anyone else who claims to do reporting on you have to find conservative outlets, and there are some, but not enough. Most of Americans maybe still watch the main networks. They're not getting the truth about what's going on the ground and behind the scenes there. That's why I loved this report personally, and I would love to do more, and we'll continue this conversation. But brother, I want to make sure that people can know they can donate for the first time. You got that donate up at interpretingthetimes.com, interpretingthetimes.com. Friends, if you click on donate, you can donate and be a blessing to Israel by getting needed equipment for the IDF reservists, just for their safety, as you heard this explanation of how their parents have to help them sometimes get the proper equipment. But David, any closing thoughts? We just have like 20 seconds.
What we're seeing over there is spiritual warfare. What the media is doing is spiritual warfare, and we need to stand strong and stand righteous. So just help support and pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Thank you, brother. God bless you. I'm so glad we connected. Dr. David Boeing, again, friends, standingstonescc.org and interpretingthetimes.com. Lord willing, we will do this again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, friends, share the podcast. Get this out there. He said so much from just being over there in Israel and spending time with the IDF that you and a lot of people have had no idea about, and we don't understand all the workings behind the scenes. Thank you for sharing the podcast. God bless you. And as always, keep speaking the truth about things that matter.